The boss of Russia's Wagner mercenary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, says he has seized all military facilities in the southern city of Rostov-on-Don. The announcement comes hours after he threatened to topple Defense Minister Sergei. President Vladimir Putin said this was a stab in the back and pledged to punish those who had betrayed Russia. The EU acknowledged the situation in Rostov remained difficult. Tightened security has been introduced in Moscow. The Wagner Group is a private army of mercenaries that has been fighting alongside the regular Russian army in Ukraine. Tension has been growing between them over how the war has been fought, with Mr. Prigozhin launching vocal criticisms of Russia's military leadership in recent months. The dramatic escalation came after Mr. Prigozhin accused Russia's military of hitting his group's base in Ukraine, a claim denied by Moscow. Mr. Prigozhin claims this is not a military coup, but his aim seems to be to topple Russia's military leadership, reports the BBC's Russia editor Steve Rosenberg in Moscow. Is this a coup? All claims of a military coup are absurd, claims Prigozhin. But it began as a no-holds-barred row over the military's failure to supply his mercenaries with sufficient kit and ammunition has now spilled over into a direct challenge to the two men in charge of prosecuting the war, Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Armed Forces Chief Valery Gerasimov. So far, this is not a coup, as there has been no bid to seize power from the government. Prigozhin's private military company does not represent the military either, although he does claim to have widespread support, but it is an attempt to topple Russia's top brass and therefore a challenge to the president's authority. And even though it was Russia's leader who allowed Prigozhin to develop his rival force, he clearly has no control of him anymore. The Kremlin is clearly taking this extremely seriously. The whole Moscow region has been put on an alert under a strict counter-terrorist operation regime, and major events have been canceled. Similar measures are in place in the Voronezh region near Ukraine's northeastern border. There are 25,000 of us, Prigozhin claimed. Everyone who wants, join us. That is not enough to threaten the president, but it is a challenge to the military leadership moving his forces across the border into Rostov. He appears to have surrounded the military HQ from where the war is being run and claims both the minister and chief of staff have fled. He denies betraying Russia, and in an outspoken criticism of the president, says he is deeply wrong. What does Prigozhin want? His idea of a march for justice is vague, but his row with the military leadership has clearly escalated so fast he wants to force them out. A video has emerged of Prigozhin telling a deputy defense minister and a general in Rostov on Friday that until the two main military figures come and talk to him, his mercenaries will block off the city and head for Moscow. There are reports of a military helicopter being shot down and of a Wagner convoy heading north up the M4 motorway in the Voronezh region north of Rostov. Prigozhin's quarrel is not with Russian soldiers in Ukraine, but with the clowns leading them, he argues. Several generals have appealed for him to calm down, but that seems too late. What is the relationship between Putin and Prigozhin? Prigozhin has long been a close ally of President Putin and has flourished under him, first as a wealthy businessman and then as a mercenary chief. What is Russia's Wagner group of mercenaries? His Wagner fighters have died in big numbers in the bitter campaign to seize Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine, which lasted months and was never fully achieved. Prigozhin blamed the military top brass for shell shortages, with graphic videos and expletive-ridden social media rants exposing the failings and the fractures of Russia's military in Ukraine. He never directly targeted his anger at the president, but his sarcastic references to Happy Grandfather were widely seen as indirect criticism. Last month, he asked how Russia could win if it turned out that this grandfather is a complete arsehole. Earlier this month, President Putin supported a move by Sergei Shoigu to have all mercenary groups in Ukraine sign defense ministry contracts by 1 July. Prigozhin has refused, seeing it as a challenge to his influence. In a lengthy tirade on 23 June, he told Russians that the whole justification for their war was a lie and merely an excuse for a small group of scumbags to promote themselves and deceive the public and president. Events have moved very quickly since then. Military sites in Rostov seized. Prigozhin accused the military of staging a deadly shelling on his men in Ukraine, but the military denied it, and he failed to produce the kind of evidence he often does. Late on Friday, he announced his march for justice was underway. His force of 25,000 would be just a tactical reserve, and the whole of the army and the whole country would be their strategic reserve. Sergei Surovikin, deputy commander of forces in Ukraine, appealed to him to step back and submit to President Putin's authority. But by morning, Prigozhin's men had reached Rostov. We are inside military headquarters. There are also reports of Wagner fighters seizing control of military facilities in Voronezh, further north towards Moscow. A serious moment for Putin and Russia. This is not a direct challenge to Russia's war in Ukraine or the president's leadership, but it is sufficiently serious for the Russian leader to give a determined and uncompromising 5-minute televised it. Prigozhin has threatened not just to set up camp in Rostov, but to head towards Moscow if his military demands are not met. Until now, he has only battled the military leadership for increased weapon supplies. Now he is taking on the leadership itself. Prigozhin has substantial public support in Russia, and even if his challenge does fall apart, this is at the very least a moment of crisis for a military that has relied on his mercenaries in Ukraine. But this is also a defining moment for the Putin leadership and a wake-up call for Russians. It is too soon to say how it will end.